Hello everyone, my name is Jeanette, creator of the Raw Vegan Beauty Book, and today we're going to talk all about protein, okay? I am going to be inviting on the author and my friend, Professor Spira. He wrote a book, so he took a book called The Mucusless Diet Healing System and he annotated it and he put it into plain modern day English and making it available and understandable for everyone. Honestly, this is one of my favorite books of all time. What's up, Tessa? What's up? What's up, everyone? This is one of my favorite books of all time. And the reason is because it's so radical. It so goes against everything that I was taught in nutrition school, everything we're taught as kids, everything that medical doctors are taught as far as nutrition goes. Not that they learn anything about nutrition. But anyway, okay, so I wanted to bring a professional on here because, and I'll just get into it real quick, I was recently attacked by the carnivore community. Somebody named Sean Baker did 4 videos on me, 4, oh, okay, and saying that I was insane, that I'm crazy, that I'm lying. There's no way I haven't eaten a dead animal's body part in 12 years. Anyway, long story short is we're going to be talking to Professor Spira about protein. Do we need it? What does it do to the body when we eat dead animal body parts? And all types of other protein-related topics. Okay, I have a lot of questions. So let's bring on Professor Spira. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate it. And let me see how to do this. So I'm going to click on his name because usually people... Oh, yeah, he did it. Okay, perfect. And yeah, we're going to get started here. Hey, Professor, what's up?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
Thank you so much for joining me. So this is our second interview, and honestly, I got a lot of questions for you, but first question before we get started is, when is the last time you ate a dead animal's body part?
Last time, I think it was, we're talking like 20 years, about 20 years ago or so.
How are
So
you?
yeah,
How are you on this?
I don't know. I don't know how. Hey, it's magic. I can bench press things.
You
I
should.
can run.
You are a medical marvel. You
I
should
know.
be studied.
I didn't. I go days at a time. Yeah, I haven't had any protein today. I don't know. I haven't. I drank juice. That was it today thus far. And so I don't know how I'm doing it, but or even more amazingly, my good friend brother Air, who hasn't had meat in 40 years, and does long fasts and things. And what's going on here? Yeah, it's
He
quite a.
protein powder, Spira. He must take some protein powder, no?
No, yeah, no. He's not into that at all. Most definitely.
So I invited you on because I consider you an expert in the field of nutrition and in specifically in this radical lifestyle, which is mucusless diet, right? And it's something that changed my life. I was a raw vegan for many, many years until I found your book. And everybody, you've got to get his book because it is so valuable, so simple, so much truth in here that you won't find anywhere else.
Mhm.
And so my first question, okay, is I want to know, um, do we as humans need protein?
So here's the thing. And so what I'd like to do is let's go to the origin of the concept of protein and let's just objectively examine it. And because anybody, we don't, nobody needs an agree to do that. You can go on Google or whatever. It's going to be the same. I pulled out an old, this is a, like a textbook. It's old school, Food and Man. It's just an old textbook. I quoted a little bit in my book, Spira Speaks, but they have a section just on like the history of protein. So just real quick, I want to take a look at that. And so this is Nutrients in Food, the Search for Protein. Although a scientific Also, although a scientist discovered the gas called nitrogen in 1772, it was not known that this element had anything to do with nutrition until 1816. At that time, a French physician and teacher of physiology, Francois Magendie, published some of his research findings. When he fed dogs single foods such as sugar and water or olive oil and water, the animals died. Magendie concluded that animals needed nitrogen in the diet. He knew that both body tissues and many foods contain nitrogen, and he suggested that the nitrogen of the tissues probably came from food. The nitrogen containing foods were called albuminous foods. Just 22 years, 1838, after Magendie's work, a Dutch chemist named Mulder gave the name protein to the nitrogen containing material in these albuminous foods. The word protein comes from the Greek word meaning first, but protein does not take first place in nutrition, no nutrient, and then it goes on from there. The idea of protein first, pro meaning first, teen meaning principle, that the foundation of this entire concept being that the first principle to life is this nitrogenous substance that they think we need to derive from dead animal carcass. Where does all this come from? And where does a lot of these, I mean, we could do the same analysis with calorie theory. We'll do that another day, because you can do this exact same thing. Go to the history and look at the origin of the concept, look at the origin of the theoretical framework, and do a reevaluation of it and say, well, let's just look at it again and see if it makes any sense. So here we have these doctors doing these sadistic experiments on dogs, as of course they've done, that they do to this day, and they were starving. They would just have these dogs and they would starve them. And they would say, okay, these dogs over here, let's give them a little olive oil. Let's give them a little bit of substance. These other ones, we'll give them just water. Let's see how long they live. They knew they were going to die. It's just a matter, we're going to analyze and say, okay, this one lived longer than this one. And then they say, okay, And then they just go down this rabbit hole until you get to a point where they're saying, well, it was because this animal didn't, they didn't experiment with giving the dog some, some cooked vegetables or something to slow down its elimination. We're getting ahead of ourselves here, but
yeah.
But that's yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. So just that alone, just looking at the origin of this theory, and then understanding, if you to just give a real quick summary of why we got to where we are now, is you start examining what when we learn most of what we think we know about nutrition, we didn't learn in like school, or we learned watching commercials. I learned about, how milk was, good for breakfast to put on my cereal and part of a balanced diet, and beef, it's what's for dinner. And, I need these certain vitamins and nutrients. I learned that growing up watching commercials. And they bring in this medical and this they dress it up in this kind of, like it's medical and it's scientific. It's part of the marketing. That's what it is. It's like, it's a marketing strategy. What do you do in marketing? What's the first part of marketing when they teach you? They say, you want to make people feel like they have to have your product. Well, what better way to make people think they need your product than to say, your bones will break if you don't drink this milk stuff that has nothing to do with a human diet, homogenized, processed,
or, Tessa said, like, fish makes you smart. Fish is brain food. That is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's 100% marketing. It's diabolical. It's brilliant. Honestly, if you just from an objective standpoint, it's like, wow, they created an entire I mean, you use the word misinformation. I mean, they started with terrible theories. You got people messing around, torturing dogs, coming up with a theory again. See what a lot of those European folks did in the descendants in the 1800s, early 1900s, that were forming what became the nutrition theory of today, was they created theories that supported what they already did, the way they already ate. So so they had a terrible diet based on our opinion today, but they had this big, omnivore kind of diet, a lot of bread and dairy and, all this meat and this kind of stuff. And so they created a theoretical framework that supported that, saying, well, because especially from the European ethos at the time, there was this superiority complex. So it's like, well, we're far superior to any other people on the planet, so we're not going to go study what they eat. What we eat is the best, and so we'll create a nutritional paradigm around how we eat. And that's, and that's what we're dealing with today. All these commercials, look at how they sell. They're not selling things based on, unless you see like the detox community will talk about elimination a little bit, but for the most part, still in that mainstream society, it's still about, they throw that word protein around, like you're going to die if you don't get, if you don't get some dead carcass, like, protein and this and that, or, that kind of stuff. And it's diabolical. They did a good job.
Yeah, it's wild, Spira, because like you, I'm so far removed from the carnivore, keto, normal, sad dieter, like the sad American. I'm so far removed. I don't have any friends that really follow that, right? And
Right.
I didn't realize how strong the keto and the carnivore community is in their belief still that we need to eat dead animal body parts. Now, it's funny because you already answered my second question, which is, where did this myth come from? So you went back to the history books and his story. You went back to his story.
Mm-hmm.
And, you already told us they had a diet and they formed a theory around that diet, like formed, this ridiculous idea that we need to eat something that really does it. Okay, my next question is, does it do any benefit? Is there any benefits to eating animal protein? Like, are there any benefits? And I'm going to ask you, what are some things that happen to the human body when you eat a dead animal?
So you mentioned The Mucus's Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret. So I'll speak from that perspective, from the author Arnold Ehret. So as well as just our own experiences and the experiences of a lot of us here. So when we look at eating meat or dead animal flesh, what happens is it's stimulating. When you put different kinds of poisons in the body has different reactions to it, and not everybody is the same. So if you take something like alcohol, some people drink alcohol and they get tired. Some people drink alcohol and they might want to go fight everybody, get real aggressive. Some people drink alcohol and they get real loving and they just want to hug and kiss everybody. It's the same drug, but a different response based on each person's individual physiology. What are we doing eating this dead animal flesh? So I was going to make a video response. I didn't get a chance to your boy that was talking mess, because she's trying to say something about, what do you say, vegans are mentally ill. So so my question for that brother is, what are all these people doing these mass shootings? What's their diet like? What are they eating? I bet, because I guarantee you it's not fruits and green leafy vegetables.
How many people followed a mucusless diet?
Right. Yeah. You want to talk about it, let's look at the diets of all the serial killers, all of the mass murderers, the folks that I saw in a documentary, the guys before they flew into the buildings on 9/11, they went to Pizza Hut and got a pizza. You know what I mean? And so I don't want to hear nothing about like that's totally ridiculous because the most mentally ill people on this planet eat dead animal flesh. And that's not up for debate. That just go to your local mental hospital and see who's in there, why they're there. You can try to cherry pick. Yeah, I'm sure there's because and there is we talk a lot about transition. So yeah, you'll have somebody that didn't transition properly, and maybe you could find someone that had some problems or lost it or whatever. Yeah, you're gonna have cases.
There's
But
vegans, there's crazy vegans too, sure.
yeah,
But
yeah.
a diet that causes mental illness or causes like deterioration of the brain cells, like the carnivore community is really scary. I didn't realize that they literally they believe that without eating dead animal body parts and drinking the fluid from a cow's uterus, that they will die or they will not be healthy. And yeah, so I'm curious, what does happen? I really love what you said. I never thought of it like that, how we all react differently. So like somebody like us, we're much more sensitive. We're definitely much more sensitive. And if today we ate what other people eat, I know for sure I'd have to be rushed to the hospital, if I ate
Yeah.
back, you know?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Because it's yeah. The cleaner you get, and part of eating the diets that we're talking about is you transition away from pus and mucus forming foods, including the protein rich foods, is you become more sensitive to those items, and so and there's this epidemic of people, the raw vegans that are going to go carnivore and eat meat again, and then they want to make this big deal about it publicly. You could have kept that to yourself, but they feel the need to just to announce it to the universe. And it's like, okay, in every one of those cases, these are people that did not transition properly. They were trying to be too strict, too narrow-minded, too like all or nothing in terms of the raw foods and the fruits and this kind of stuff, and they didn't go through any kind of transitional process that long enough for their body for what they needed to do, and then of course they felt, yeah. I mean, you can't even call that falling back. I mean, that's just like, it's crazy. So, but for people that transition properly, you would get, like you said, deathly ill. You'll get totally sick. And some people, and it could die, it just, you have it, and it's just like you take cyanide. Well, you might survive that, but it's poisonous. You probably die. And so yeah, so you literally would really need to but the funny thing is you could use the transitional principles if you really wanted to, then to go back to meat, then you better transition back, because this overnight kind of thing is kind of dangerous. But essentially, the reason that folks that eat like that think that, like, okay, well, this is all well and good. Even Arnold Ehret in the Mucus Diet book mentions that it's if you're a one-sided, he uses the term like one-sided meat eater. If you're a one-sided meat eater, and you don't really overeat, then you can outlive like a vegetarian, which today we would call like a junk food vegan, somebody that's just eating a bunch of crap that really doesn't eat much vegetables at all. They have processed everything all the time, all day, and a lot of starchy stuff and white potatoes and all that kind of stuff. Then yeah, the reason that a one-sided meat eater can outlive a junk food vegan or junk food vegetarian is because, as Eric points out, even though someone that is eating meat, if they're eating a small amount and then it's just kind of being burned up, then that's in alignment with the principle of what Eric calls vitality equals power minus obstruction, which simply means that the less waste and the less obstruction in the body, the more that the air gas engine, the breathing process, and where we really, our real nutrition comes from air. we can't go 5 minutes without air. We can go days without food, and we know that we don't we don't die, but you can't go 5 minutes without air. Uh, and so that's where it can get kind of deceiving, where people can be like, well, I know so and so, and they eat terrible, and they're 90, they're in their 90s, and they're 100. It's like, well, some people's physiology will permit them to eat diametrically opposed to nature and live to again to what is a long life. I mean, that's all based on the pathology of humanity, of where we don't. I mean, that's part of what we're trying to explore is how long, when you do clean yourself up and you clean your bloodline up, how long do we really supposed to live? Because I don't think this 90 and 100 year thing is not it. You know, I think we the potential for the human body is way more.
Noah lived till 500, perhaps. I don't know if is that.
I mean, there's a lot of different. There's when you start getting into different texts, and you would have to categorize them under the philosophy or the occult, or I don't know, whatever you want to say, some of that, but stuff like Hotima and things. But they'll have instances where people we're in their 500 and 300, that kind of stuff. Then people that are into some of the old ancient texts. I mean, there's a lot of the ancient mythological texts of humanity have humans that lived into being thousands of years old. That was just normal. I think there's an old Eastern philosophy that says that adolescence is the first 100 years. Like these are like our teenage years, like year 1 to 100. That's where adolescents or children. And so, but you see how that life because again, whenever they start getting into life expectancy and how long people are living, it's very Eurocentric analysis that's based on looking at European ancestors, because they don't have the data. When you go far enough back into the Africans, or even folks in Asia, in some of the deeper parts of Asia, you could even, for all we know, some of the Native Americans in North America, South America, we don't know how long, because a lot of when folks would come, the Europeans would show up, they just assume they're not really the initial guys and really asking a lot of questions like how old is, I mean, they could be people that look like they're 30 years old and might be 150 or 200. They wouldn't know because they were too busy just trying to like destroy people and steal people and stuff. And so,
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, so it
went on to a totally, yeah, I mean, there's so much hidden information, and like we're just tackling the protein thing, but there is, as everybody watching this, probably everybody that follows me and follows you knows, we've been lied to for so long that the information has been so twisted. Who knows how to believe what's true or not? So that's why when I got your book and it was so simple and it made so much sense, I was like, oh my God, this is the truth. And so the mucusless diet healing system does not at all focus on protein. It focuses more on elimination, and that is the key to health. Tell me if this makes sense. Health, I always like to say it's 80% elimination, 20% nutrition. Is that what you and Arnold Ehret believe as well?
So, I mean, we won't, in terms of, the word nutrition is interesting because there's definitely a number of people in our community that we just kind of reject that word altogether, just where we just kind of like, it's been compromised. The concept of it has been compromised. And so there are folks in the community that just kind of outright don't agree with the nutrition, just conceptually, just historically, just with that concept.
Wait, so
instead
that they don't need nutrition from food?
Yeah. Let me this is interesting. So let's look at so I got this in Spira Speaks, but you can find this out there. But this is like the etymology of nutrition. And so nutrition comes from 1550s, from the Latin nutritionem, a nourishing from nurture or to nourish or to suckle. So like the words like nurse, nourish, that's all coming from this nourish. As a nurse, you used to have, wet nurses and things, if people know that. Then if you go nourish to from 13th century to bring up nature, a child, a feeling. From the Old French, nourish stems from Old French, let's see, back to Latin, older form of nutrix, nurse. She who she who gives suck. That's from the thing, meaning it's like yeah. From she drips or gives milk. So it's literally getting the origin of the word nutrition traces back to the phenomenon of a human mother being able to breastfeed the child and provide the child with what is it like? Well, what do they need from our perspective, or one angle that you've probably never heard before is the reason that the child needs that mother's milk, or one of the fundamental reasons that it needs that mother's milk, is to slow down its elimination. Because
wow.
Yeah, I know it's different.
Knowing your book and your work, that makes sense. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you start to really get into that and you start to see that eating is about controlling one's elimination, then it's a huge paradigm shift. And I mean, yeah, we can't get into all of that here. And for some folks, unless you read the book, it's going to sound a little out there, but it's real, because one of the reasons that or ways that we just experience this ourselves and observe it in folks in the community and things like that is we have people that do long fast. Now, I don't promote long fasting. You're not going to go find videos of me like, you need to be doing these long fasts. I don't talk about my personal fast like people like to make those videos like I'm on day 14 of a fast. It's like, no, that's like personal to me. You just do what you need to do. But we have members of the community that do really long fasts. Now, if nutrition was real, like if that was absolute, if it was an absolute, like science, like if it was a scientific law, then these people that I know personally would be dead because they are not getting enough nutrition. Now, if you recontextualize nutrition as if you're saying, okay, of the absorption, because we look at minerals and we're looking at the necessity, because we need to eat for now. So don't get me wrong, but why do we need to eat? We need to eat because we got to clean ourselves up, and it's going to take a while. It's going to take a long time to clean ourselves up. There is no fast fix. There is no like 14-day cleanse or 40-day fast or something like this. Is a lifelong kind of transformation of cleaning up the blood.
When you say
and
from everything we've eaten for the last 20, 30, 40 years, that's what you mean?
Well, I'm talking about for the past like 20, 30 generations. We got to reconstruct our bloodstream. I mean, this is a real to evolve as opposed to degenerate. The human species is degenerating and has been degenerating with every generation, and we're getting weaker, not stronger. And there's more diseases. There's some of these things that they come up with now. Our ancestors didn't deal with that. Don't think that was just because they didn't write it down, that they were suffering from the same ailments and the same diseases and cancers and this and that and diabetes and all this kind of stuff. This stuff is a result of humans continually eating wrongly, poorly, not getting it, not getting it. And because you're never supposed to have babies born with diseases, but that's part of the pathology. That's where we're at now. I mean, babies are literally being born with ailments and diseases, and it's sad.
It
But
really,
the idea,
it really is sad.
mm,
Wow, so much to unpack there. But I'm just curious your thoughts on, so if it's so many generations of poison and, like what the building blocks of our bodies have been completely made of, just toxic ingredients, like toxic DNA. So, do you think that it's possible to turn this around? Like, how long do you think, if everybody went mucus free, right? If everybody ate a mucusless diet, which, by the way, in case if you're watching and you don't know what that is, basically it's eating things that don't create mucus in the body. So, all fruits and vegetables, there are a few fruits that do cause mucus: avocado, coconuts, durian, the fatty fruits. All vegetables, and there are some even, like starches that don't cause mucus. You can cook the fruit or vegetables, that doesn't matter.
mhm.
In fact, sometimes it's better when you cook them because it's even less starchy or less mucus forms in the body. But my question to you is, Spira, if you had to, like, if everybody went mucus free, how long do you think it would take? And this is a weird question, but I'm just curious your answer.
Mm.
How long would it take for us all to just like heal and get rid of all the diseases and become the humans, step into the humans that we were supposed to be, that we were designed to be?
If we vigorously, and we almost have to do this on like a individual basis and said like all of humanity, it's like, well, that's probably not gonna happen. But what will happen is there'll be a small group of us, and I think the divide is gonna get, it's like the diseases we see over here with like the result of this carnivore stuff and the paleo and the Atkins people and all that is really part of the same tradition. That's going to get really, I mean, you want to talk about people that will lose the ability to have natural bowel movements. We'll have, that'll be over there at the left, and then we're going to be over here on this other side. How long does it take? So my estimation, I think, if if you have a child, if you practice the mucusless diet, you have a significant other that seriously practices this lifestyle, and which then enables you to raise a child, because that's, some people misinterpret that. I've seen parents eat bad themselves, but they want to raise their child on a mucusless diet. I'm like, don't even try. You need to do this first, and then,
That's
you
ridiculous.
know, yeah, it's so my theory, or my kind of projection is, I think that you could start having children in your bloodline that will not understand the concept of disease as we know it within 2 generations. So
Wow.
you have a child, raise that child, and then if that child also has a mate that's into the diet and has a children, now you have children that have really eliminated the latent diseases. See, that's something that that I don't. Few people talk about. That's what we're into. Is you as you're going down this path, you start to eliminate the latent diseases when you're not just dealing with whatever, because a lot of people get into the diet because they're already sick, they're trying to heal
Right.
something that's debilitating. But if you're not dealing with that and you're just like living your life and just kind of going through this process, then you start to pull things that would have become a problem for you in the future, weaknesses. People call it genetic weaknesses, whatever, however you want to call it, but you bring this stuff to you so you can eliminate it now with a younger body, as opposed to, and that's the results of eating mucus free, the results of fasting properly. You're going to bring these things, anything that was, genetic, or any of that stuff that you were going to experience. Doesn't it make more sense to experience those potentially fatal eliminations when you're younger, as opposed to when you're in your 60s or 70s and you might not be able to withstand it? And we're at a point now where it's now normal to die in one's 60s, or 50s. My friend brother Air, he's got losing a lot of people that are in their 50s, and the age keeps getting lower. And so,
I just know somebody that passed away 2 weeks ago, 65.
mm,
65.
mm,
And of course, she ate like shit. She smoked, and she looked 85, and it was so sad.
Wow.
Such a beautiful person. Okay, I have a lot of questions, Spira, because the hour's going fast. Okay, now because it's like there's so much disinformation. So one thing that somebody told me in the carnivore community, this is hilarious, and I get your opinion. Okay, so they asked me, how often do I go to the bathroom? Okay, number two, how often do I go to the bathroom? I told them I go about 2 to 3 times a day, depending on how much I eat or how often I eat. They told me that, brace yourself, sir. They told me that that is too much, and it means that eliminating nutrients way too fast. And the normal amount for a human to go to the bathroom to move their bowels is once every 2 days. This is what the telling people. So now my question to you is that possible? Too many nutrients, and what are the dangers of going once every 2 days?
Wow, and I didn't know that about them, that was there. That was, I mean, it's like diametrically opposed.
I'm losing nutrients. I'm losing too many nutrients.
Wow.
That's why I look so unhealthy, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that there's people out there that are actually recommending that humans only have a bowel movement every 2 days. Yeah, that's so what we're talking about there is chronic constipation. And now when we talk about constipation, we not only are talking about bowel constipation, but also the systemic cellular constipation that happens as a result of this chronic bowel constipation. But with those, if they're eating a lot of meat, and you got your liver people and liver kings and all this that kind of stuff, the body is so acidic that uric acid, we call these lean types, and so because what people do, and with the old Atkins diet, which is what a lot of these are, just different incarnations of the same idea with little tweaks and changes. But the idea is, one of the reasons that you lose weight when you do it is you made your body toxic so that it will literally burn fat with its toxicity. You've made yourself, just a walking pool of acidosis.
Wait,
because you
can you explain that one? So you'll burn the toxicity. Can you explain why that happens when you?
Well, yeah, because you're essentially so Eric talks about 2 different body types just in his theoretical framework. There's a lean body type, and these would be the people we would say would have like high metabolism. They can eat anything and they will never gain any weight. They're usually real slender kind of physiology people. Then on the other side, you have a fat physiology, or people are mucus type of physiology, people that just pick up weight easily. And it's just, the 2 different types. What he says about the lean type is that there's more chemical interference. These are overall a more toxic kind of physiology that just deals with food in a different way. It deals with waste in a different way, by way of breaking it down into these acids. So when they have that meat, and that's burning down, and you're just literally creating this toxic organism that is, it's like, if you put, because you say the acid in the stomach, but you just take some acid, you put the meat in there, and it goes, it dissolves down. You're creating kind of that lab experiment of acid to just put this stuff in there. Whereas when you start eating like what we're talking about, you neutralize a lot of those acids, which is what they would hate, but makes it almost impossible to eat that animal flesh, because you've those kind of, it's like, yes, you still have stomach acid, but it's like way, neutralized, that you never ever, I mean, I used to have, back when I ate meat and all that kind of stuff, I had heartburn, that's a dumb word, acid reflux, almost every day, and I took Pepto-Bismol almost every day. I even took it with me to high school, and I could have gotten in trouble. I could have got suspended if I got caught with like a little pink pill that I took, because the acid was horrible. And if that would have kept going, that would have burned me from the inside, and then you get all those issues of the, yeah, that's typical for people. Again, that the same people like, but you got to get your protein, but you're literally burning. You're burning yourself from the inside out with what? There's only two sides of chemistry, as Dr. Morris would say. There's acids and the alkaline side. It's not alkaline, it's acids that's in here burning people. All the people getting these just all the different ailments. That it's like when it gets intense like that, to where you can, like, literally, they have disease names for just the burning, when just all of this excess acid. And so essentially, when you eat like that, if you have a so-called low carb diet and you're eating mostly meat or whatever, then, and even if you're on one of those kind of paleo, one of those where you might have a piece of fruit because you think you're out in the cave somewhere, and you have some fruit along with some raw meat or something like that, you essentially are changing your physiology by way through this acidosis. It's like you're a walking cesspool of acidosis. And so in the short term, yeah, you can lose weight. What's the problem with that? Well, the problem is you lose weight at the expense of becoming a toxic mess. And I've worked with a number of people that had went down that type of path, and what tends to happen is the ability to have natural bowel movements starts to go. And then you get your colon cancers, and that kind of stuff is real prevalent. But that's what I've seen in that type of direction once you start going. And so, you can lose weight, but weight is not all it's cracked up to be. Like, that's really not how we should even be analyzing if somebody's healthy or not. Like, are they super skinny, or are they muscular, or are they, it's like, there's plenty of people that looked like they were super healthy, and yet they still had strokes and heart attacks. Well, what were they eating? What were they doing? And so what I'm interested in is, I want to see, which is harder to see, but the clean blood, with somebody's blood. But yeah,
it's almost a testament to the human body that people can eat what they eat. And you do amazing videos on crazy TikToks and things that people are putting in their body.
Right.
It's almost as if, and I hate to say this, but it's almost like, eating animal flesh is might even be a little healthier than some of the other things. Like you said, like Arnold Ehret says, if you're a one-sided eater and you're not eating processed food, but you're eating a dead animal body part, that might be healthier than this vegan processed food that is just so toxic, and is just not, that's not at all belongs in the human body. So my question to you is, how is it possible that humans can eat what they eat and still function? How is this possible? I'm okay. So we eat very similar, right? We eat super healthy. We take care of ourselves, and we still have days where, we're not feeling the best, or we're tired sometimes, or we don't have bad illnesses, right? But some days we're not feeling our best. And I'm trying to figure out, how are these people driving cars and out in society? How is it possible that the body can function with such toxicity? What is your thoughts on that?
So I like this. It's this idea that I think I read it in Man's Higher Consciousness, this Hotima book. But and don't, if you're not ready, don't read that if you're not ready. That's an advanced book. Read the mucus diet healing system first. But he talks about this idea of the law of vital adjustment, and essentially it's one long transition that humans have been on. You go far enough back, way past where they keep talking about their little caveman theories and all this kind of stuff, and that our ancestors used to be hunter and gatherers and all this. Is keep going physiologically. and you get to, and they even mention that in the, I'd have to find it in this book where they theorize or they observe that the earliest humans were plant eaters and probably fruit eaters. And so when you go back far enough there, what happened? Where did we get to where we are now? Was it ever natural for us to be omnivoric? At what point? I mean, the carnivore thing that's just ridiculous. That's can't even because
omnivores. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah. So people try to say, well, you were naturally omnivore. No, we're naturally fruit eaters, but we have imprisoned ourselves into a period of omnivoric eating because we're going to have to transition back, and you're not going to transition hundreds of generations or even thousands of generations of folks transitioning their diet. Because you look at the diversity of diets around the world. Everybody tries to, look at their own little thing or this Western way we eat, but there is such a diversity of different ways that people eat. There's these weird deviants or people that eat like nothing but just junk food. It's like, where are they getting their protein at? There's people that eat nothing but Doritos. I saw something, or some of these kind of stuff. So if nutrition was so important, they would die too, and they're living. So what for a period of time. So what is this really all about? In term, the thing to understand with where we are, how we got to where we are is simply transition. Just over time, for whatever reason, the question is, and the paradigm shift is, instead of looking at it as a good thing, because that's what, again, that sort of European superiority complex type of information that these scientists came from, they looked at that as an evolution, that they were evolving, that the brain didn't get bigger and we didn't have this ability to do these great things until we started to eat dead animal flesh. And so our ancestors were just eating rabbit food, and that were just on such a low level. Once we started eating this, that was the end result of this theory of evolution, that we just got so much better. So even they will have to concede that the human species and our ancestors were not, we're not omnivoric in the way that we are now, and that you go back far enough, you're going to get to the plant-based, the plant-based eaters.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask a few questions from people that are here. Thank you everyone for being here. So somebody wanted to know, do you eat grains? Are there any mucus-free grains that you eat?
Well, there's not a lot of mucus-free grains, but the one thing where we're different from most everybody that you would hear, like in the raw foods community and stuff, is we promote transition. And so not all mucus-forming foods are created equal. Not all cooked food is created equal. And so there are certain grains that I used over the years. I've been practicing the mucusless diet for 20 years. And there are certain grains prepared a certain way. Also, the way they're prepared makes a difference. That I've used for transitional purposes, because craving mucus is real. Craving mucus-forming foods is real. You have to wean yourself off of it, and it takes time, again, because when you start to look at the totality of our ancestry and our bloodline, I like to say trace your stomach, like analyze the history of your stomach. When I do those DNA tests, that's what I'm looking at. I'm kind of analyzing, like, okay, here my blood was over here, like over, and they were eating, that was the potato famine over here, like I'm analyzing all that, because even early on, I mean, what's crazy, when I started craving things that I had never even eaten before in this life. Early on in my transition, I craved buffalo one time.
Buffalo urine?
I've never,
buffalo.
No, not the urine, no, like buffalo meat. Now, I've never eaten buffalo, I can't tell you exactly what it tastes like, other than one day I woke up and it was like that was eliminating. That was something from my ancestors
Wow.
that was going through my system, and I just was like, why do I crave like buffalo? Like, I'm thinking about it, getting my mouth is watering, and then we do lemon juice and distilled water enemas. That's something else people get mad about. But I did that and cleansed myself out, and that never came back again. That was gone, you know.
Yeah, I just want to say two things. One, I said buffalo urine because in my,
I know.
I just want people to know that we recently discovered that like people are not doing steroids anymore. They're drinking buffalo urine for the hormones to like transition to a different sex or whatever. Okay, so that, and then the other thing is that your book put me on to the fact that when we're craving things, it's because it's going through our bloodstream and being eliminated. And this is so important for people to realize, because like, especially people that are trying to go vegan, they crave meat sometimes and they're like, it's my body telling me that I need protein. I hear that from so many clients.
Yeah.
I help people transition to a healthy vegan diet, and I let them know that it's leaving the body. When you're craving something, chocolate, pasta, caffeine, alcohol, everything, it is leaving the body. Correct, right?
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that becomes very self-evident when you start to go down this path and you do it properly. And this is one of the things, because I've worked with a lot of people that they found like raw foodism first, and in some of the fasting, they get like, there's the fruit fasting and that kind of stuff, and done within the context of transition, that can be very powerful. But what I found is they were not being taught transition concepts, and so they'll eat like that and they'll feel good for a while, and then it's like they hit a ceiling. Like they can't, they're not feeling good anymore. They can't really go any further. They might not have healed whatever it was they initially were trying to heal, and then they don't know what to do. They haven't been trained again, because and if they've been really beat over the head like that cooked food is all evil, then they're not gonna be thinking of baked banana or baked apples or baked acorn squash, or things that are not going to leave a trail of slime in the body, but is a little bit heavier, is a little more satiating for going through certain periods of one's transition, and slows down the elimination. So when these people are doing fruit fasting and that kind of stuff, that's speeding up the elimination, very rapid. And that's that feeling when people, that if the more obstruction that you have, the more toxic waste you have. And people talk about the reserves and this, in the nutrition things, because when you fast, their theory is that you're feasting on your own reserves and your own meat internally. I mean, that's how deep that goes. But if we're going to talk about reserves, let's just talk about the reserves of toxicity that get trapped in the body, and like the layers of the biofilm and stuff. And that's part of this lifestyle, is you're moving this stuff out. And I see a comment that said raw till dinner. That's another thing that's funny to me, because all of this it's like, when there is a lack of transition, people find a way to like put it in there, because that's nothing but like raw till dinner. That's like transition diet.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, I did that for years. I didn't know it should have a name. That would, you know what I mean? Like I have fruit in the afternoon and vegetable meal in the evening, and the vegetable meal probably have some raw with some cooked mucus-free vegetables, and that's kind of standard. But of course, when the folks that started doing that, like the raw till 4 and all that raw till, that kind of stuff, instead of just dealing with the transition diet is all that you really needed to do, then they did that. But a lot of those folks were kind of really dedicated to the calorie theory, so they didn't care
about health either. Like, we're
not
gonna touch that, but they weren't.
Okay, yeah, that's a whole other episode, right?
They were eating healthy things, and you know what? Let's do another episode on that, because I actually destroyed my teeth eating like them. I was in the States nonstop. And I thought that was healthy. And okay, let's move on. So
Yeah.
we'll do an episode on that. Okay. So Arnold Ehret and you helped me understand that every disease starts in the colon. Is that correct? Every disease starts
Yes.
in the colon. And so now somebody asked a question that their father has a really bad skin issue for 20 years, a very bad skin rash. I don't know if they're still here in the chat, but I wanted to get to this question. What would you recommend? I mean, we obviously have to hear what they are eating, right? But
Yeah.
just assume that I doubt they're eating mucus free, right? But let's
Right.
do a crazy thing and assume that they are a healthy vegan. They're eating a mucusless diet. What do you think is going on there? Why do people get skin issues?
So again, it's avenues of elimination. So much human illness and disease is in places where the body is trying to eliminate something, but there's obstruction involved and it can't. And so we got the kidneys, we have our colon, we have our skin. And so a lot of folks have skin issues that become really chronic because that's just where the body is trying to eliminate that for that person. Because that in somebody else that could be colon cancer. In somebody else that could have been if they did a lot of poisonous things to their lungs, that'd be lung issues. And somebody else that could be liver, pancreas issues. It's all just different kinds of toxicity, and the body's job is to try to really to protect the vital organs as much as possible. And so you have people eating and living in a poisonous way, then you'll see things like the skin issues. And we have like epidemics of that. And then, you can go online and look, people drinking milk. People still doing that. It's ridiculous. But you drink milk, there's so many people that didn't even change their diet. They just got off of milk and their acne went away and their skin issues and dermatitis, all that kind of stuff.
I have a question real quick. Is goat's milk any healthier than cow's milk? Because there is a big community out there that is drinking raw goat's milk that they're telling me that it's totally different.
No, I mean, it's like, yeah, maybe it has a little less fat in it, or its its constituents, if you break it down, it's maybe, a little less harmful, but it doesn't make any more sense. It's not needed. There's no nutrition value in it that we need from the milk of any other species. We're the only animal that I know of that does that. We're ridiculous that we're going to go and because for one thing, this is liquid that's meant for in the case of a cow, 120-pound baby calf, and then goats are not as heavy, and that's why their constituents would be less fat and stuff. But still, even if somebody thought that was a good idea, the human body stops, and this is according to their science, the human loses the ability to process lactose at age 2. And so even then,
wow.
Yeah, that's, you can't. So what do? They invent things called Lactaid so that you can keep having your dairy, and take a pill and it'll help you process this lactose. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. So yeah, no, the raw, I know these folks, they're because again, it comes back to the nutrition. They're still trying to base that on this nutrition theory. What's wrong with grape juice? If you need liquid, what's wrong with juicing some grapes or juicing some pineapples or you can have a green juice, or you can, the worst case scenario, if you were really had a craving for that type of milky thing, you were transitioning off of that, you can make your own almond milk or something like that. I'm not a huge fan of that, but you can do it. It's transition. It's fine. But yeah, no, that's ridiculous to have a human drinking that the excretions from another animal is just very weird. It's just really ridiculous.
Very. Okay, well, if anybody has any questions, we'll take one more if that's okay, Spira. Do you have time for
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Leave your question below. We'll take one more question. Obviously, we could go on for a lot longer because there is so much to unlearn and so much to learn. And okay, somebody, my friend, actually, I know this person. He's from Woodstock Fruit Festival, which maybe you'll come to this year, and that will be amazing. So now, why is nut milk bad? You know what? That's a great question, Maurice. I think this is Maurice, because that's like something that's found in nature. Nuts are found in nature, and so why do you consider nut milks not a health food?
Yeah, so well, most nuts, and in this, I mean, and I'm surprised. It's one of those things I'm surprised like that it got as big as it is in the raw foods community because, well, I understand why because it's mucus forming, and so it's addictive. But
Yeah, yeah.
you gotta you can't really just go pick. As far as I know, maybe there's a few nuts like that, but the ones that I know of, you got to do something to them. You can't just go and pick them off a tree or get them out the ground and start eating them. You gotta soak them for a long time or roast them or something, to
Eat them
get the.
outside. They're very hard, the shells.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So, yeah, first off, yeah, because the animals that are supposed to eat the nuts, they like, you take a squirrel, their teeth are so strong, they can bite right into that, just and get rid of that shell. Yeah, us, not so much. And so, and I know it's off the top of my head, all the poisons that are on there that um, that you have to get off of there when you soak them. You soak the nuts. If you have 100% raw nuts and you soak them for 24 hours or something like the almonds and that kind of stuff. And you got to keep filtering that water. If you do it properly when you're soaking them, you like every couple hours, and you can smell that water is like rancid. That's nasty. And you pour it off, put more water in, and let it sit. It's still food preparation. It's not like just taking the piece of fruit off the vine or eating it like that. Now, it just from a physical standpoint, in terms of for people that are using those things thinking that it's nutritious, that's where I'm like, no, like it's not. You don't need that.
Well,
It's unnecessary.
protein, and vegans are still believing in the mainstream
Right.
narrative, which, like, that's another episode, but still, I can't believe that vegans are doing protein powders and still believing in the narrative that we were supposed to be woken up to, the fact that that's a lie. We digress. I want to know, are there any mucus-free nuts or seeds?
Not really. Now, if you get some sprouted kind of stuff, some of those things can be pretty much mucus free. Or if you get the like alfalfa sprouts and some of those, the more starchy the sprout, the more it's going to be slightly mucus forming. But again, like with a lot of that kind of stuff for transitional purposes, I'm not real hardcore about it. I'm just like, if that is something, because even if you just eat even beans, just regular beans, like, we're not as strict as people think we are, just because we have what people think is a strict definition of what is or is not mucus forming. We're just observing. But where our analysis comes in is how does something eliminate? Like how, because the name of the game is to eat things that don't leave behind a whole lot of slime and slime residue.
That's good.
And, you know, and so that's what so the nuts. So now if you eat nuts, then you're going to want to do it with dried fruit. That's what Eric brought to the table, where he's saying, look, if you're going to have some nuts, that's cool. Because of the high fat content, eat it with dried fruit. That's going to help it digest and eliminate and leave behind less slime. Now, as you start to live this life longer, you get to a point where, you might go back. You go a long time without any nuts, and then you go back and have some nuts and raisins. Then you just notice it's not digesting well anymore. It's not eliminating well. And when you notice that start to happen, then you move on from that item. There's so much other stuff to eat that you don't necessarily need that.
That's a good point. Notice what's going on with your body. Notice what is happening with your body, because some people, and that depends on their level of tox, right? They can eliminate things faster than other people. And so Sway, I promise this is the last question. Sway said he wants to know, the smaller the seed or grain, the better, right? So like, I'm wondering, like, does Arnold recommend any, like, what's the healthiest nut and seed in your opinion? Like the healthiest, even not mucus free, but in the transition, what's the healthiest, fattier thing that people can eat?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at, I mean, yeah, I guess like sunflower seeds are going to eliminate pretty good. I mean, when I was eating nuts, I didn't really, because I was never into it that deep, and so I just had mixed nuts, just like of the roasted ones. Like it wasn't a big deal, And I just had that with a bunch of raisins. Then I did a period where I got into the soaked nuts and that kind of stuff, just to experiment and to see what that whole world was about. And I started I started to understand why a lot of folks in the raw food community get addicted to taking enzymes and stuff, because they're trying to eat a lot of stuff that is hard. There's not, like I said, not all raw foods are created equal, and there's some stuff that does not eliminate very well, and folks are trying to eat things raw that you just need to cook some of those things.
You can be
And
unhealthy. I just want everyone to know you can be
yeah,
extremely unhealthy and be a raw vegan. I was certainly a very unhealthy raw vegan until I found the mucusless diet. And even now, like, I asked you this question kind of selfishly, Spira, because I'm a raw foodist and I love to make my dressings with, hemp seeds or Brazil nuts, and I'm constantly sunflower seeds, and I'm constantly trying to reduce, but it's tough because, there's not like that. I I crave the creamy dressings.
yeah. I mean, and so for me, and one thing that I'm happy that Eric recommended and said was, he's not really hardcore on the condiments, except for avoiding vinegar. And I know there's probably some apple cider vinegar people. Sorry, just use lemon juice. Like it's better, but other than that, when it came to some, especially because it's one thing when you're having just the nuts, and is eating them down. But if you're turning it into a dressing that's going to be on a big raw salad, then it's going to eliminate better. It's not the end of the world. And so when you're being more strict, then yeah, you can, if you want to go periods of time, and that's the difference is go periods of time 100% mucus free, and then go back to whatever your transitional mucus forming foods are and incorporate it. So you could go, because I'll make these 100% mucus free dressings that are like basically like cucumber, lemon juice. I'll put like spinach in there, some seasonings, like non-salt seasonings, and in a blender, and then I just put that on top of a salad, and that's like, oil free, mucus free. But if you want to use some nuts, and even Eric had mentioned this kind of nut based kind of dressing, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. And so, but yeah, the sunflower seeds, I mean, the hemp seed, that stuff is cool. I mean, really even the creamy cashew type of dressings I like, those are fine to me for transitional purposes. What you start to see is your body is going to let you know when it's time to move on. Because if you're cleansing yourself and you're just letting your body go through this process, the day will come when you eat that thing and you do not feel good from it. And you just have to be mature enough and ready mentally to move on when that day comes. Because there's definitely things that I would still eat to this day if my body could tolerate it. But I'm not going to slow down my transition for that, but it's like,
I was going to ask you, do you eat cashews? I'm guessing no.
Not anymore. I used to, those were like a staple of my transition in the early years.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, I can't eat like that stuff now.
I cannot eat cashews. I do exactly what you said because I truly believe in the mucusless diet. I eliminate all mucus for a period of time. I go back to eating some things with mucus, and this is such good advice because then you can start to see what affects you. And Brazil nuts and hemp seeds, they do not affect me as much as cashews.
Hmm.
Cashews,
Yeah.
I literally wake up with a sinus like infection.
Stopped up and yeah, yeah.
I don't have any mucus at all coming out of my nose, or like coughing ever until
Mm.
I eat cashews.
Yep.
Me, right? Like that's me,
Right.
and I'm assuming that's you. But hey, if somebody's out there and they're eating cashews because they just started eating healthy, obviously that is exactly what they should be eating. So Maurice, the person that asked about the almond milk, listen, it depends on where you're at in your journey. Don't give up almond milk to go drink, cow's milk, or like something that's less healthy than almond milk, right? Like it's all about the transition, like Spira keeps saying. And so it's once you're ready to give up the almond milk, you can switch to making banana milk, which is, frozen bananas, water. Maybe you want to put in
Oh yeah.
vanilla. This is a beautiful substitute. Hemp milk, hemp seeds, water, dates, maybe some vanilla bean. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Yeah, cashews got to be power washed to get the poison off them. I wouldn't, honestly, I don't know.
Well, all the nuts, I mean, they all have to be either be soaked or yeah, power washed or whatever to get that,
Yeah, healing
get that off of there.
avocado is mucus forming, and you'll know that by giving it up for a while. Give up all mucus forming. First of all,
Yeah, give it.
get the book and you'll get the list of all of the foods that are mucus forming, are semi-mucus forming, and then fully very mucus forming. And then you'll start to notice how your body reacts to these things. When you give up eating animals, that's the first step. That is the number one mucus forming food in the world, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, pus forming. I mean, we define there a difference between mucus forming and pus forming. So the pus based foods are basically just a very concentrated form of mucus that we're calling pus. It's not necessarily infected tissue. It could become infected, and sometimes it was, but that's a different definition. Ours is just when you just objectively look at dead animal flesh and you just let it rot. And just if you don't put it in a refrigerator, it's a more unnatural stuff. Is like, yeah, we're gonna let's put this in a refrigerator and keep it cold. It's like, no, if you just the animal dies and you just let it just rot, then it turns into this really viscous kind of poisonous material, and so it's very acidic, very and that's what we're demanding our body try to process when you eat that stuff is that that pus. And so the one thing I wanted to say, I wanted to tell our friend that so any of the carnivore people, if you really want to, if you want to be 100% natural and do your whole thing, it's okay. I respect you guys. All right, here's how I will respect you. If you can take your big bad canine teeth that us humans have, these canine teeth, and go out in the woods and find your prey, and you can jump on the back of the animal and sink your teeth in and kill it just like the carnivores do. And then, of course, and as you well know, the first thing that you're going to go for is the gut. If you watch the animal videos with the tigers and the things, after they make they kill the antelope. And again, so there's a whole other thing of degeneration. They're not killing the healthiest of the animals when you go and because people always want to try to compare themselves to the animal kingdom. They make up this thing in their head. It's like, man, these lions, they're not chasing after and catching the healthiest antelope and zebra. They're getting the decrepit, diseased, sick animals.
Catch. Right.
Yeah, the ones in the back that are kind of limping around. That's the one they get on. Then what do? They go for the gut. And so they're literally eating partially digested plant matter from the herbivoric animal that they're eating. They go for they're eating that partially digested, so all that feces, all that. So you watch these videos. I used to post a couple of these. It's like all the liquid feces coming out, and the carnivores just eating it, got the feces all coming down his face and stuff. So that's how, if you want to be paleo, you want to whatever, you want to be carnivore and stuff, then do it right. Then like do that right.
Right.
Because
calling themselves a name, it's like they're calling themselves a name that doesn't even make any sense at all. Physiologically.
Not at all. Yeah.
The whole thing. And, of course, they're projecting because they're calling, vegans and like people that are eating no animal body parts, they're calling them insane and weak and crazy because, of course, they're projecting, because it is insane to think that you can eat a dead animal's body part and it's going to nourish you and be healthy for your body and eliminate properly. And, the whole thing is very sick and sad. And it doesn't even, listen, they would never go after an animal, let alone the animal's intestines. Never. If they hunt and get an animal, what are they go after? The meat part, the bone, the thighs, I guess. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, the liver. They like the organs, like that Liver King guy. And
that guy's
that
guy's
yeah.
An actor, right?
I don't know what he is. I don't know. I think he's a real. I think that's really how they're eating with his family. They got the whole family eats. They basically have organs. They eat organs all day. I've been gonna do a video on him and do a reaction to his family eating, because it's definitely educational.
I'm not introduced to him because I got thousands of messages from carnivores last week and 2 weeks ago telling me to die, telling me I was insane, telling me I'm gonna die. Spira, I'm gonna die. It's been 12 years. I'm eating no animals, but I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Health is gonna decline any second now.
Any second now. Yeah.
And you know what? You can eat, and for all the people watching this that care about their health, you can eat healthy for 40 years. And the carnivores and the keto people and the paleo people are going to tell you year 41 is the year that you're going to die, or you're going to suffer, or you're going to get a protein deficiency, which has never existed in the history of mankind. There's no such thing as a protein deficiency unless you're starving to death, right? I mean,
yeah, and then that becomes that's another elimination analysis when you say, well, what is starvation? When you see people that need to eat something, that are in some of these places where where they're not getting what they need because of political issues, like famine is not natural in human history. There's usually some political reason for it to be there, for decisions that other humans made. But these people need to slow down their elimination. And when they can't, they don't have the food to slow it down, then they essentially drown in their own waste. And that's when people fast too long and die, when you have these cases where people like fasting and they die, that only happens when, again, that person shouldn't have been fasting that long to begin with. They didn't transition. They didn't clean their colon out. They weren't. And then they needed to slow down their transition. They needed to slow down the elimination, and that's the art of fasting, the art of this. I like to bring that concept in as this is an art form and not a science. People like to throw the word science around, and most of what people call science is advertising, is what they've been advertised to. But in artistry and art is based on, we can all have the same principles in a particular discipline. You learn to be a painter, a modern day painter, you want to learn the methods that came before you and then internalize it and then do your thing with it. And it's not going to be the exact same as what another painter did, because you're a different height. Your skills are different. Same thing with music. We can use the same method book. I'm a trombonist, and I could be teaching a student and use the same methods and book that I was taught, but the way that they process it, the way that they use it is going to be different because they are different. Their size is different. Their lips are different for the embouchure. They're all that kind of stuff. And so that's what an art form is all about, is you take what the principles and the methods from the past, internalize them, and then you do what you need to do with your body, you know.
I love that. Yeah, and let's end it there because I couldn't have said anything like that better. That is amazing, and that is exactly what we need to be doing. And we need to trust our intuition, but we need to start stepping into our greatest version and making better decisions. Our families are going to call us crazy. People on the internet are going to call us insane, clinically insane. People are always going to tell pioneers. And if you are eating a mucusless diet or eating a healthy vegan diet, you are a pioneer. Okay. You're doing something that is not the norm, that is forward thinking, and people are always going to be scared of that, right? And they're going to judge you.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I'm sure, Spira, I'm sure you get so much, like, you get some crazy stuff, I'm sure, from these carnivores and from random people online about how you're not healthy or whatever. But it's not about you, it's about them. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. Everyone, please, if you're not following Professor Spira, please go follow him. Click the link in his bio. He has amazing resources, lots of books, and lots of things that can help you to feel better, heal, and help yourself and your family and loved ones, because people don't know how to eat. They don't teach us how or what to eat in school. And we can't rely on nutritionists because they're focused on
Yeah,
that's
that's
not even for the human body most of the time, and how that body is designed. Like you said about air, that is our nutrition, really. And I'm not saying we can be breatharians, right? I'm not saying that, but we'll talk about that another time.
yeah, that's like yet again another another episode, whole other
So,
thing. But yeah, now if anybody's interested, I have a live event on Tuesday, and there's a be a Q&A at the end of it. So I'm going to be talking more about all this stuff. It is kind of like an introduction to the mucusless diet and some of the things that we were talking about here, we expand upon. So I invite you guys, anybody that's interested in that, you can just click my little link in the bio, and it's just right there.
yeah, perfect. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put the link below. Okay, so click the link below because in a few days this is gonna happen. So yeah, I'll be there for sure. That's amazing. Okay, thank you so much, Spirit. I really appreciate you. Let's please do this again because I have a lot to learn.
Yeah,
And yeah, I really love it. Thank you so much.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right, thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys.
All right, bye.